go. Okay, so I want to start the class today with a little announcement. I think you guys saw it at the team meeting yesterday that we are going to be launching a coaching hotline, just like the broker hotline. And the newest, I want to say coach to join us is going to be our very own Mike Russo.
What's up? What's going on, everybody?
Awesome.
Yeah. So Mike is going to be helping us. He's going to be one of the agents that will be responding to the coaching hotline. So the deal is when you call into the hotline, it's going to ring on all the coaches' phones and one of us will be able to pick up so we can get to you sooner, as opposed to wondering in the WhatsApp group chats who's available, waiting for an answer. It'll just ring directly to our phones. And Mike, we couldn't think of anybody better, honestly, to ask us to help us on this endeavor. He's going to be doing an amazing job for us. He is one of our advanced coaching agents right now in the program. And Mike, I just want to do a quick introduction while I've got you, and then I'm going to jump into the class with Steevie. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How long have you been licensed?
So 3 years in August.
3 years in August.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I guess 3 years in next week, really.
Yeah. And where did you start out with your real estate career?
Right here, KW. Started off on a team right away. And that's why I say August, because I started real estate. I joined KW in July, like July 1st. Yeah. But I started off on a team the next month in August when I was like, yeah, this game is a lot more interesting than I thought it was.
Awesome. And so you're no longer with the team, is that right?
That's right. Yeah. So in September, I went off on my own. Yeah. Decided I built up enough confidence and trusted myself enough to kind of branch off and go on my own.
Awesome. And then when did you sign up with Jen?
About a day later. No, it was,
awesome.
I think it was Jen. Yeah, I think it was January. I started, like, that was like our first, I think I touched base with her around Christmas time. Actually, no, it was even earlier than that. I want to say it might have been November. Touched base with her and was like, listen, you know what? It's the accountability part when you don't have a team or you don't have anybody else and you're just a solo person, the accountability part is very, very hard. And so for me, it was like very easily, I was able to identify that, yeah, it's important. That was an important aspect that I had missing. So I was like, I want that back in on it. And so with Jen, coaching with Jen, it's been that, right? The accountability part. I think it's like every week I'm going to owe her $50 if I don't do something. So, it puts me into trying to get stuff done, which is nice.
Yeah. And help me cover my Starbucks bill, which is perfect. So
that's
it's all good.
Yeah, exactly it.
I love that. And I think the great thing here to acknowledge is, like, for a lot of you that are starting out, there's the balance of, do I do a team? Do I do a solo thing? And both are great. It's whatever you decide. We love both aspects. And I think that there is such a focus on teams that we almost forget the big business that you can build as a solo agent. But part of that is having some assistance and having somebody that keeps you accountable, like a coach, or it means bringing on the admin nice and early on so that you can leverage a little bit more time. Like, solo agents need a little bit more leverage, and that's some things that the team can provide. But you can do that on your own. And Mike is a very smart guy, I've learned as I've gotten to know him. And honestly, it makes total sense to me that you would have gone to a coach like right away. Like, all top achievers usually do that. So it makes total sense to me.
Yeah, no, and it's an easy solution because, again, when you're running it on your own, like, there's no accountability at all. Like, you're literally, your only person that's going to be accountable to is yourself. So if you don't have that, then it's very easy for me to sneak off at 2:00 in the afternoon and go play a round of golf, right?
Yeah.
Which I love to do, but I shouldn't be doing that at 2:00. So it's like, it's easy to get out of that. And so that's obviously very important that accountability part of it is in it. Not to mention that, like, another thing for me with the coaching was that, Jen also coaches with tons of other agents that are at different levels. So she sees what they're doing where I want to be, and they can say, like, well, this worked for this agent. This didn't work. Try this. Well, experiment with this a bit. I found that this worked with other agents or other teams, right? And so that alone is, like, super powerful to me.
Yeah, you hit on something big there. It's like, it's not a one size fits all, right? Like, there are going to be different strategies and different techniques that work for different people. And that's the great thing, is we're here to learn that. And partially with our topic today of lead generation is for you guys to figure out what type makes the most sense for you, and where are you going to thrive, right? Where are you going to have your energy during your lead generation, and which one are you going to be I guess, productive at? Like, which one are you going to convert at the highest? Because some people, they're great on the phones, but they don't like doing the phones, or they enjoy doing the phones, but they're terrible at converting on the phones, and they convert amazing in person. So it's about learning that and then kind of getting in the right spot for it. And before we jump in, I want to talk about just lead generation as a whole for a little bit. And Mike had a session. Your session with Jen was yesterday. Is that right? Just after the meeting?
Every Wednesday.
Yeah, and we were talking about something that came from that, and this comes up all the time on our coaching calls. Is you're dealing with a handful of buyers right now that are taking up a lot of your time. Is that right?
7 to be exact. Yeah.
Yeah. So you got 7 buyers that are eating up a lot of your time. And part of that discussion that you had with Jen was, okay, I'm in a spot right now. Is it okay if I share this?
Yeah. 1,000,000%.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm in a spot right now where things are going well. I've clearly got 7 buyers that I'm working with. I can take my time off my lead generation and just bang out these 7 buyers and be in a good spot. But how did that call go when you started talking about that?
Well, I didn't like that idea. Yeah, I was very hesitant. So Jen actually said, if you did 2 weeks of, just focusing on your buyers and get them out of the pipeline, it's not the end of the world. And I was like, I love that idea, but I hate the idea of losing that 2 weeks of lead gen time, because it's weird. It's so strange, but it feels, I feel, even though I'll be writing contracts, I feel like I'm not doing anything in the day.
Yeah.
But when I come in, I'm like doing all these showings and doing all this stuff. It's great. It's a great feeling. I write a contract, we lose out on it or we win it, whatever it is. If I don't do the lead gen part of the day, I feel like literally almost naked. Like I feel like, oh my God, like, what am I doing? I got to wake up here. I got to get back into lead gen. And it's a weird feeling to have, but I understand where Jen's coming from, where it's like, it's clearly stressful that your whole day is jam-packed every single day, because you're trying to help so many people, and you're like, I'm alone. So it's tough to deal with that. Right. So I understand where she's coming from. She's saying take a break on it, but I hate that feeling of taking a break on it. Cause then it's like that part of your business takes a little bit of a hit, and then that almost becomes a habit. Right. And then I don't see it right away. I won't see that in the next 2 months or the next 3 months once all these buyers are closed, but I'll actually see that in the late fall and early Christmas time, right? Because all the lead gen time that I'm doing now is setting up the follow-ups that are going to, hopefully convert later down the road.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And so the point is that we never want to take our foot off the gas in terms of our lead generation. Now, everybody's got different numbers on what they want to hit. Like, our recommendation is, if you haven't figured that out yet, that you still need to be having at least 10 real estate conversations a day. And now, Mike, I want to talk about your journey a little bit here. So what was your previous form of lead generation? What were you doing, and what was your daily expectation?
Yeah. So before, when I was on the team, the expectation was 500 dials a day, 100 contacts. So that's a 20% conversion ratio.
So 100 contacts a day.
100 contacts a day is what it would work out to be. Now there was, the goal was to always have an appointment. An appointment a day was a very good goal to have. Obviously, you don't get that every day, but that was our goal.
And sorry, I'm going to jump in again. After you left the team, did you maintain that expectation of yourself?
Yeah. So I kept that to myself. Yeah. I kept going at that. And then once I started coaching with Jen, she said, like, that's great, but is it being as effective as if you were to take that same amount of time, instead of focusing on getting 100, focus a little bit on different pillars as well. Right. So instead of just being straight cold calling, what if you added this, and this in? Right.
Perfect. And I don't want to dive any deeper on that just yet. I'm going to save that for after we get to Steevie.
Save the juicy parts for later, right?
Yeah, exactly. So what the 2 points that I want everybody to hear really loud and clear is, one, we're not taking our foot off the gas with our lead generation, no matter how busy we get. We can have 7 buyers that are taking up a lot of our time, but we're not letting them step into our lead generation and break that routine for us. Because lead generation is hard enough as it is, as a general rule for real estate agents and wanting to do lead generation and sticking with it, that if you break that habit, especially once you're in the habit, it takes you too long to get back into the habit of doing it again. And it becomes too easy to say no to and too easy to skip. And if you don't do it, that pipeline that you've been feeding, that database that you've been feeding with clients, you're going to notice that gap. So I can share something just in terms of the coaching program. when Jen went on maternity leave last year, it was great. We handled all the coaching. I did the advanced guys. We had people helping us with the PC program and everything, but nobody was doing recruiting. So we're feeling that now a year later, that this was her time on maternity leave. Nobody was lead generating for the program. And so we know where our numbers are down a year later from that impact, right? And you're going to see that in your business as well. You can be like, hey, I'm working with 7 buyers. This is great. I'm making money. I just did 7 deals. And then all of a sudden you're going to catch a cold 6 months later and be like, oh man, I've got nobody that I'm working with. Where's my next deal coming from? So that's why we need to stick with it. And the other thing is the dedication that Mike is talking about in terms of hitting 100 contacts a day. Now we're talking about a very different kind. That's all cold calling. So the numbers need to be a little bit higher, but that's still 100 contacts a day was the goal that and expectation when he was on the team, and that he kept for himself afterwards. And so after we talked to Steevie a little bit about door knocking as a form of lead generation here, I want to circle back to you and see how we're adapting that now through, a little bit more strategic input, right?
Right. Yeah.
Perfect. So Steevie, I know that your team are big door knockers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And now that we're opening back up again, are you guys out there pounding the pavement?
Michael is. I have yet to, but Michael has been. Riley actually is taking this week off, but he will be back out next week. Troy's back out. Yeah, majority of the team's back out. We've got Natalie training on doors right now. So yeah.
Natalie, if you don't mind unmuting yourself, I passed you in the hall the other day and you shared that you'd been out knocking on some doors.
Yeah, it's actually been really nice. I've been shadowing Mike doing it this week, and it's just really interesting to see how he converts like those conversations. Like you turn one little conversation into like a contact that you keep in touch with forever. So it's really interesting to see how he does it.
That's
and
perfect.
Having good success right now too. Like he's getting like 3 leads a day. He's booking appointments at the door. Like people are giving really good responses right now. So it's a great time for her to be shadowing too.
That's awesome. I think everybody's so starved for personal contact that it's almost like they're welcoming the realtors at the door now.
Normally they're like, screw off. Now they're like,
yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about that. And in terms of like your expectations and what you guys are looking at for a team, like how are you guys formatting your door knocking? What's kind of the stuff that you guys are saying at the door? What are you bringing to the door? What does that system look like for you guys right now?
Yeah. So generally, again, obviously we're just getting back into the swing of things because of, taking so much time off specifically from door knocking. That's the thing with cold calling, people were still able to do it this whole time, but with door knocking, we're just kind of getting comfortable and getting back into the swing of things. But generally, the expectation on our team and the way that I was trained on the team is always that we do a minimum of 400 doors a week. So it's 100 doors every single day from Monday to Thursday is sort of the idea, and the goal is 4 leads a week. So breaking it down to 1 lead per day. Obviously some days maybe you won't get a lead, but other days you'll get 2 leads or whatever, however it works out, but that's the bare minimum goal. And again, it is 400 doors a week. So we aim to do it from Monday to Thursday because for us and the way that our team is, especially come summertime, we very much do have the attitude of like, take your Friday off, go up to the cottage, go enjoy your weekend, but get the shit done that needs to be done from Monday to Thursday. So yeah, 400 doors a week, 100 a day, 4 leads per week is kind of the way it is for us. We have a script that we use for door knocking. It's our typical lead gen script. We practice it every single week. And as far as what we bring to the door, we have, so our team gets made business cards, and then we have separate door knocking cards, and our door knocking cards have our face on them. Our business cards do not. So that's a key difference. Our door knocking cards have a free home evaluation certificate on the back of it. So there's something of value if we're leaving it behind. And our door knocking cards are a little bit longer. They're kind of like a bookmark length because they're easier to go in the door and they stand out a little bit more. And sometimes we will say like, oh, if we're having a conversation with someone, we'll say, oh, hang on to that card. It makes a great bookmark, whatever, just something that gives them a reason to like keep it because, a lot of people will just throw it in the trash after. Like Mike and Riley have had people literally rip up the card while they're talking to them. Like it's insane. But yeah, so that's what we bring. And then we always make sure too, we have the Top Producer app on our phone so that if we're ever Top Producer is what we use, we're switching over to Command full time, but we just haven't fully made that switch. So what we do is every area where we know that we're going that day, you take a look at your Top Producer to see who of anybody on our team has a lead on that street, so that when you do go knock on that door, you can actually address them by name. And then also we can get an update for, even if it's not your own lead, you can get an update for your team member and whatnot. And then the only other thing that we do always bring with us as well, on top of lead sheets, of course, we always bring a lead sheet in case we get a lead. But we bring, we bring a printout of the recent sales in that area. So just in case he does ask, we always know.
Sorry, can you say that again, Stevie? I was just muting someone there.
Yeah, no worries. So we bring a printout of like whatever area we're doing, whatever street, we bring a printout off MLS of all the recent sales in that area. And even the just listed, just like whatever's going on in that area. So that if anyone ever does ask, because it happens all the time, people ask what their neighbor's house sold for, we're never caught not knowing. We always can tell them that information. So we bring that, we bring a lead sheet, and then we bring our door knocking cards, really.
Yeah, perfect. And so Jenna's got a question here asking just what do you have on your lead sheet?
So our lead sheet looks like, oh, I should have brought one with me. I could have shown you it. Basically what it is, ours is a little bit more in depth, but really what the main things that we're writing down and all the lead sheet really does need to have on it is all the contact information. Oh, I have one here. So yeah, Natalie just brought it. So we have, so again, like this is what ours looks like. I don't know if you can see it. It's got a lot of stuff on it. Yep. But really what we end up writing down is name, of course, address, including the postal code, phone numbers. So we have like a business cell phone or a business number, cell phone number, residential. Like we try to get as many numbers as we can, because if we only get a landline and that landline drops, you're screwed. You're never getting in touch with them. So you want to always get cell phones, but we try to get as many as we can. We try to get an email. And then if it ends up being like an actual hot lead, like someone who's like ready to do something, we try to get house information as well. So we'll ask for their house information and we can write all that down here too. So, and then a comment section too, to write down like, you want to write down basically the summary of the conversation that you had. So we write that in the comment section.
Absolutely.
But at the bare minimum, a lead sheet should just have like all the information, like their contact information, I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, so we've played with them in the past in terms of sizing, where we've done like half-page lead sheets, so it's not quite as in-depth, where it is just kind of contact information and then a note section to write down everything that we talked about. It varies on if you're a solo agent or if you're on a team. Teams are going to have different expectations, and maybe an admin person that you hand that sheet off to in the background. And depending on what you want to be entering into your database for information, you might have a little bit more than you might just have from a lead sheet where you're just saying, well, I know I'm going to be calling them next week to follow up, so I don't need all that information right now. But again, the more you can get, always the better. And this ties into a lot with if you're doing lead generation through your sphere. The more information you can have about people, the better, because that's how we make all of our touches count. Like knowing anniversary dates, children's birthdays, when they got their pet, like all those kind of
holidays they went on, everything.
Holidays they went on.
So I got a quick question about that. At what point do you start to fill that sheet out? Like, do you do it on your first time knocking that door, or is it like, you know, if the conversation's going well and you try to aim for that, or is it like after, you know, you visited 3 times and you really, they start to know you, you start to pull out more information on them?
Are you asking me, Mike?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah. So we try to get it right off the bat, as much information as we can. It's really, for us, it's just kind of a judge of the conversation. So always when we're going for the lead, the contact information, of course, we know that's a lead, is the contact information. So what I've found is that even if, like, sometimes if I take a lead that's maybe like 2 years out, even like a year out, I won't always ask for the house information, just because I know I am going to follow up with them so many times. And that when I finally do go to book that appointment, I'm obviously getting all the house information. However, in my experience, and like Mike always gets so much information on every single lead, generally when they say yes to giving you like the lead and their info, they'll give you anything you want. So if I ask for their info and they give it all to me, and I just go into, we'll say, now that I have you, do you mind if I take down some information about your house? We've really never had someone say no after they've given us the lead. They'll usually always be like, yeah, sure, no problem. And then we just get right into, okay, so it's a detached 2-story, is it a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom model, like what? And then we just start asking and they answer. So you can do it first time around. I think it's just judge of the conversation. Like I said, if they're far out, sometimes I won't, because I also want to get onto the next door. And I know I'm going to talk to them after that, but you can definitely do it in that first.
Yeah, because I think that's a big struggle for a lot of people. And like even my own experiences as well, is like, when do you go for that information? Is it too awkward to bring it up and like, how do you transition that? So it's nice to see that you actually do go for it on the first shot, right? And the first time knocking on their door.
Yeah. If they've expressed that there's interest there in moving in the next, X amount of time, and to the point where I've said, do you mind if we keep in contact? And they say yes, and they're giving me their contact information, naturally to segue into, well, I have you, do you mind if I take down some info about your house? They'll usually, like, we've literally never had anyone say no. Like, they always say, yeah, sure, no problem. And people like talking about their house. So it's usually easy at that point.
It's a perfect segue, Stevie. I love it. And the great thing about it is, now that you have that information, as you see homes and you're keeping them up to date with what's going on in their neighborhood, you can draw back on that and show that you're also the expert on their house, and say like, hey, this one that sold down the street, it didn't have a finished basement like yours. I know yours is finished. So there's probably a little added money there. Like, I haven't seen your house recently. We need to check in for a little update if you're thinking about what it might be worth today. But just so you know, unfinished basement over there compared to your finished, or whatever it may be, right?
Yep.
More info, the better.
Absolutely.
And yeah, ultimately, once they start talking and they give you that information, you're now working into what we call foundational questions. You're asking them questions they know the answers to. They're going to be happy and easy to share and kind of get on a roll with answering those questions. And we're going to talk about that further when we do the pre-qualifying at the end of our call today. So Stevie, in general, when it comes down to door knocking, what's your take on door knocking in terms of how you guys approach it? Like, where do you go door knock? Are you working on a farm? Are you just door knocking around your listings? Like, what does that look like for you guys right now?
Yeah, so everyone on our team kind of has an area that they work, and not that people are necessarily like cornered into that one specific area, but pretty much everyone, like where they reside is like where we door knock, because I find you're always best to work the area that you generally like really know, like the back of your hand. And usually when you reside in it, it's better too, because you have like a different invested interest in that area. And I think people respond better to that. So we all kind of work our own areas. Like, for example, I do Georgina, Mike's Newmarket, Riley's EG, AJ's EG as well, more specifically Holland Landing. So is Riley. And Troy's Newmarket as well. So we all kind of just stay within the area that we actually live and know. And that's kind of how we do it. We do have certain subdivisions and stuff that we farm more than others. Like, for example, Simcoe Landing and Georgina, that's where Mike and I actually live. So we pay extra attention to that area. So we work that one a lot. And I thought Georgina is like so massive that there's no possible way for me to do the whole of Georgina like all by myself. So I have about 3 subdivisions in Georgina that I like work and I go through over the year. So like I do one, then I move on to the next, and then I come back. And then like by the time I get through all 3 of them, I can maybe do it twice a year. And yeah, that's kind of how we do it. So you pick sort of a pocket or an area and you keep going back to them.
Perfect.
So, and you don't want to spread yourself. You don't want to spread yourself too thin, right? Because you want to keep going. So like, even again, all of Newmarket's quite large. So Mike does like, a couple subdivisions, and you just keep rotating through them all year. So they keep getting hit a couple times a year. Because if you only do one area once, it's just not enough.
Yeah, it's kind of like a wasted touch, and they don't get to see that bookmark with your face on it as frequently. It's one and forgotten, right? They don't get to see it again. Like,
if you don't get it on that one time or whatever, like that's it, right? So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so I want to ask you about your script at the door, kind of what that sounds like. But before I do, if anybody's curious or has door knocking questions, please ask us now. That's kind of the purpose of this, is to get you guys feeling comfortable with what that would look like, so you guys can go out and start doing it, and take advantage of that opportunity now that it's opening back up again as a method of lead generation. Mm-hmm. So Stevie, I mean, I could put Natalie on the spot that she's been shadowing all week. How do you feel, Natalie? Do you want to share kind of what your scripts have been like when you guys are at the door?
Yeah, I haven't done it myself. I've just been watching Mike do it, but he always just comes out like, hi, I'm Mike from Keller Williams, just doing some work in your neighborhood. Curious if you've thought about selling in the next 3 to 6 months. And normally you get a yes or no pretty quick. Yeah. And then just like to kind of push the conversation a little bit farther, just like genuinely ask, like, how long have you been in the area? Like, it's a nice spot here. Like, just kind of get them like open to having a conversation, and then segue into like, oh, if you would go somewhere, where would you go?
Where would you go?
Like, what am I thinking of? Yeah.
That's perfect. Honestly, guys, that's how simple it is.
Classic script.
Yeah.
Love it. Like just beautiful.
Yeah. Just to the point. And honestly,
sorry, go.
Sorry, what was that, Stevie?
No, I was just gonna sum that up. I was gonna say our script consists of 4 questions that we can like always ask. And like sometimes you don't even end up asking every single question depending on how well or whatever the conversation goes, but it generally always goes exactly that. Are you thinking of moving in the next 3 to 6 months? How long have you lived here for? Would you stay locally or would you move out of the area? And do you see yourself making that move in the next year or two?
Yeah.
That's it. That's always our questions. Yeah.
It's so simple. Are you thinking about doing it? If you did, where would you go? What's your timeline? Is generally what we're looking at there, right?
Yeah. And obviously, if they say, yes, we're thinking about moving soon, you're never going to get to that question of, so you're thinking of doing that in the next year or two. So that's how it ends. Like if you get that no answer, you can naturally go, because then, maybe 3 to 6 months is too soon, but they are thinking a year or two, and you can still get that lead. Right. And then the same thing as well as asking, would you stay locally or would you move out of the area? That's the most key question. I've said this to you guys before. It's the most key question, because if they can answer that, they have thought about it. If they cannot answer that question, they're genuinely not, it's probably not a thought. But if they can say like, yeah, you know what, I think we'd move out of the area. Our kids are grown, we're empty nesters now. They live out in Innisfil. We'd probably go up that way. Like there's a thought there. So you want to push for that lead, even if they're playing hard to get. That's how you know to push for that lead. That question is so key.
There's a couple questions in the chat box, Dylan.
Yeah, that's a great point, Stevie. And I love that where sometimes when you ask that question and you can genuinely tell it's the first time they've thought about answering that question, they go, I really don't know. Yeah. That's when you know for sure they're not a lead just playing coy, they're just not interested.
Yeah, and they're maybe trying to be polite and answer you, but they're not moving. So
and so Jenna was asking, you bring neighborhood stat sheet also. So on the neighborhood stat sheet, are you essentially just printing out recent sales from the neighborhood?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep it simple. I never getting into like crazy stats at the door. It's more like they'll either specifically ask what a specific house just sold for, or maybe they'll say, oh, what are towns going for in the area? Yeah. Something like that. So just
nothing worse than knocking on a door and the one across the street sold, and they say, yeah, how much did that one sell for? And you're like, oh man, I don't know.
Especially because we introduce ourselves, like I introduce myself as the local real estate expert.
Yeah.
So then it's like, I don't know that. And I'm like, God, I'm not much of an expert, am I? Like, yeah.
So the key here is we're not creating stuff that's going to stop us from going out and doing our lead generation on time. It's a quick little search of the area with the streets and have them printed. Like if I know I'm knocking out in one section, or if I know I'm knocking 5 streets, the night before I'll just print a list with those 5 streets on it for the last few months, so I know what's sold, and I'm done and I'm out the door, just so I've got that with me as a reference. Alyssa was asking, what time do you find is best for door knocking?
Okay, I see both of your questions, Lisa. I'm going to answer these and then I have to hop off. But so for us, for door knocking, we do it like first thing in the morning pretty much. So we never go any earlier than 9:45. Even that's pretty early. Like I say 10 o'clock. Mike will push like 9:30. He doesn't care. But like I'll go 9:45, 10. And we usually end up finishing up just naturally to do 100 doors. It'll usually take us anywhere from like 11:30, depending on if you're hitting like towns or what you're hitting. 11:30 to 12:30 is kind of like the range. Some houses and stuff you can bang through a lot quicker than others. It also depends on how many open doors you're getting and whatnot. But generally, we'll go for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. And we do that first thing in the morning. Our day is always structured lead gen, lead follow-up, then appointments. That's how our day always goes. And we feel like it's best to just get it out of the way first thing in the morning, because other stuff won't come up and get in your way. You do it, you get it out of the way, it's done, and then you can use the rest of your day to do other stuff. And it's usually a good time in the morning like that. And then you asked, what is your closing comment to acquire their contact information, whether they're interested in being active now or a year later? So 2 things that we've done in the past, we used to send out monthly newsletters that were like an actual flyer. So we would ask if they would be interested in being kept up to date with our monthly newsletter of just like basically sales that are going on in the area, keep up to date with what's going on in your area. And they would either say yes or no to that. And if they said yes, we would ask for their contact information. We don't do that anymore. So now all I ask is I just say, you know what, would you mind if I took down your name and number and just kept in touch with you like once or twice a year? That's what I say. If they've expressed to me that they have any interest at all in selling like in the next 2 years, I'll just say, you know what, would you mind if I just took down your name and number and kept in touch with you? I'll only touch base with you like once or twice a year just to check in. That's what I say. And I contact them way more than once or twice a year, but that's what I say.
Yeah, that's perfect. Stevie, thank you so much for sharing that with us.
My pleasure, guys. Sorry.
I know you got to hop off. It's all good.
Okay. Bye, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. All right. Now I want to get back to talking to Mike about his lead generation journey, because is there anybody on this call that has committed to and stuck with hitting 100 contacts a day? Mike, put your hand up, bro.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. I thought you were asking everyone else. Sorry.
No. So, like in terms of the dedication and commitment that it takes to hit that, and I hear him through my wall because we have adjoining offices. I can hear him on the phones making his calls, and I've noticed that has slowed down recently, and part of that has become your pivot in strategy. And so when we talk about just genuinely doing 100 cold calls a day to get your 100 contacts, it's almost like a churn and burn to get that many contacts. Is that right?
Yeah.
And so how many, like, what's your strategy there in terms of how, again, going back to originally with the 100 contacts a day, how are you deciding the 100 contacts? What was your guideline there? What were you doing?
So 100 contacts is a bold, right? Bold, that training course.
Yep.
If you're in there, they challenge you for one day to hit 100 contacts, whatever it is that you're doing. So I was just like, okay, so all these agents, like the idea of it came from all these agents in here are challenged to do 100 a day, and like 95% of them don't even do that. So I was like, okay, how do we be better than all the other agents? Just do it every day, right? So and essentially that was born. And you just hit 100 contacts a day, and it's like, boom, okay, everyone else is doing 20. Actually, not even. Sorry, I think bold was 100 a week. Maybe.
Yeah, it's 100 a week. It's 20 a day, and the bold challenge was to do 100 in one day.
100 in one day. That's right. Yeah. So it's just every day, just doing a bold challenge, just to be able to do it, right? Because we're doing in one day. The idea was we're doing in one day what agents are doing in 1 week.
In 1 week, exactly. Yeah. And you're doing this through. I'm just going to kind of lead you there. We're doing this through like Mojo and just pulling numbers. And so, how would you rotate through, I guess, geographically where you were calling?
Yeah. So basically, I just have a sheet that has pretty much from Richmond Hill all the way up to Oromadante, every commute, like literally Newmarket, Aurora, Keswick, East Gwillimbury, Holland Landing, just going all the way up there, right? Sharon. And just, I start at the top of the list, Newmarket 1, and I just make my way right to the bottom. As soon as I hit the bottom, Oromadante, I go right, it takes me probably 3 months to hit the bottom one, and then right back to the top. And then that's like once a quarter, right? You're going through all the numbers.
Yeah. And so Stacey's got a question here. How long does 100 contacts take you?
It depends on the day. It was typically from about 9 till 12 every day. So what's that? Yeah. 3 hours, 4 hours? Yeah.
Yeah. And again, Stacey, that's with the help of using Mojo, where it's just constantly dialing.
Triple line dialer.
Triple line dialer.
Yeah.
There you go. So as soon as you hang up, you've got somebody else to talk to right after.
Yeah. And I was wondering also, Mike, if it's an app. So to me, one contact is a pickup, right? Someone's answering and there's a conversation.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right. So if they pick up and it's a voicemail, that's not a contact. I have to physically hear them say either hang up on me or say no for it to count, right? Usually you hear the click, but as long as I know there was someone on the other end of that phone that I spoke to or they heard me, that's a contact.
Okay.
If you want to get really specific, you could really say you want to hear their voice. And then it's like, yeah, that's really like, you'll probably hit like 600 dials with that.
Right.
Yeah.
What about emails and text messages?
I never count those. Yeah. I mean, I probably should. I do now because of my transition. I do it now. I count that now. But before I didn't count that. So I wouldn't even like keep track of how many texts and emails were going out. It was just, actually, I don't even really keep track of that now. I probably should do a better job at that. I just like roughly, I'll be like, okay, yeah, today I talked to 8 people. Perfect. Mark it down. Right. And then I try to mark down like how many leads I got, if I signed any contracts and all that stuff. But for like, for emailing and stuff, I think like, to me, they're just bonus. That's just a bonus. Like if I'm dealing with active people, I should be dealing with them all the time. And so I have a touch plan, a 36 touch plan that goes out once a month, or sorry, not once a month, more than once a month, but it has those touches every month. So I just know that that's going out. Right. So I don't really count it as a touch on that day because it's like an automatic thing that just goes out. Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now, Stacey, if you're being purposeful with like virtual door knocking and social media messages and stuff like that, those kind of contacts, definitely count those. Especially, it has to be a real estate conversation, right? Yeah. That's how we count a contact. So even Mike, when he's getting hung up on, they're usually doing that after he says, "I'm your local real estate agent."
Yeah. Yeah. I was actually
That-
joking about that to you this morning about the
Yeah, we were-
scripting, right?
Yeah.
Soon
And
as
so
you
we're
say
working on
realtor.
converting our scripts a little bit to kind of get around that. But the thing is, you have to have at least addressed that it's real estate related for it to be a contact. Because if you're
Yeah.
just calling your friend to see how they're doing today, doesn't count as a contact for our real estate business.
Yeah,
It's a
that's
great
exactly
touch
it.
to stay in touch with our sphere, but it has to be real estate related.
Yeah. And even the emails, like if you're emailing clients, because like really, I have 2 emails that will go out. So if I call a client and they don't answer their phone, I hang up the phone and I send them an email saying checking in. And that's the subject, checking in. And then I'll say, hey, Dylan, I just want to check in, see how you and your family are doing. Want to make sure everything was good. There's like, I would probably say there's probably about 80% chance he doesn't respond back to me. And so like, do you count that? You sent the email. Is that now a touch? Well, no, because really it's like a voicemail, right? You didn't actually speak to anybody. So I don't count that as a touch because unless I'm getting it back in that single day, it doesn't count because you didn't actually communicate with anybody. You just sent out a blank message. Maybe it was just deleted, right? You just don't know. So that's why I don't personally count it. And then same with texting, right? Like texting, some people don't respond to you or they'll respond the next day or whatever it is. So that one's always kind of like, I'm always torn with that one.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm sending DMs about like, hey, you responded to my listing, do you want more information? Yeah, that's a contact 100%.
Yeah, that's real estate all the way.
Yeah, real estate all the way.
Yeah. And so, Stacey, sorry, did you have another follow-up question?
No.
Okay, just checking in. So, Mike, you've been doing this cold calling now for quite a while, and where are we pivoting to? Like, what did you start to notice in your trend of doing this cold calling? Like, what have you noticed last year versus the year before, and this year versus last year? Like, what's that looking like?
Yeah. So basically, when I look at my business on a whole, I look at where my deals come from. Majority of my deals come from buyers, right? Now I have a couple listings a year that I will do, and that's great. Some of them are Mojo related, so they're cold call related. But for the most part, a lot of my stuff has been buyers. And so to me, I was like, okay, so when I'm cold calling, it's pure numbers game. I'm trying to hit 100 contacts, get an appointment, try to go and convert that appointment, right? But at the end of the day, I could go a whole week, and that's what's happened during COVID is like, I would go a whole week, sometimes a month, and it's like no appointments, right? I'm getting leads, but I'm not getting an appointment. So really, I'm calling all these people. I'm spending all this time calling. They don't see my face. They don't get anything from me other than the number that I call them on is a fake number. So they can't even call it back, to be honest. So really there's nothing at the end of the day. There's nothing there that they take back to them. So I've been trying to transition my business to more of a value-based business, meaning that like I'm trying to go more in depth with clients. And so for me, the transition is I looked at a couple different teams that are, mainly listing teams. For example, Stevie's team's a great, Volpe's team's a great example of that. They're heavy on listings. Okay, so what is it that they're doing differently that everybody else is doing? Well, they're door knocking areas, right? And it's called farming. They're farming one area. Okay, who else has a lot of listings? Michael Tuft's team. What do? They farm an area. And I was like, okay, who else? Wayne Clements, Vincent Bongard. What the hell do all these guys have in common? They're all farm an area. So I'm like, okay, maybe this is the transition that I need to start focusing on and really start farming out an area. And perfect example of this, Dylan, is I had a builder. We sold 20 homes with them up in Mount Albert. It's called King's Landing. So there's 30 homes in total. We end up selling 21 of them before they had an agent before us as well. I was done there. I knew every single person that moved into every single home. So I know them all. I talked to them all. When I was there at open houses, when I was trying to sell them, I would go outside. We would have drinks outside in the sun, whatever, right? I stopped going to that area. So then I get a call from my builder saying, holy crap, can you believe the price of that house I got listed in King's Landing? And I'm like, wait, hold up. Somebody listed their house in that area when I'm the only agent that knows their house inside and out without even like, if you blindfolded me, I would figure out where to go in the house because I sold it. And I was like, somebody listed it without me. And I was like, holy shit, I'm dropping the ball on this. This is my farm. These people know me, but they forgot about me. So ever since that day, every single month, I now go out and drop off this, knock on the door, say, hey, what's going on? How are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. What did you get up to? How's the home? And I just go out there. And just now, the first day that I went out there, the first time, the one guy was like, yeah, you know what, when the last house is built, I want to sell this place. So give me a holler, contact me once the last house, the people move in, and we'll get going on that. Beautiful. Sounds good. And like,
awesome.
that might not have been there if I hadn't have returned back, right? Or he might have called a different agent.
Absolutely. And we talk about this a lot in terms of the service and staying in touch and staying in flow with your clients and your sphere. Is it's all about who shows up at the time when they're ready. Like you can communicate with you guys, stay in touch with them, and then you stop for 6-7 months and somebody else pops in and you're done. Right.
So
the other
with the
agent's
guy
gonna
that
get
sold, sorry to cut you off, the guy that sold in that subdivision, I knocked on his door because he sold his house. So I'm like, I gotta know what happened. Like, why didn't you choose me? And he's like, honest to God, Mike, I would have. He's like, but I didn't have your contact information. I had nothing. And this is an older gentleman. He's not on Facebook, right? You can't just like Google me essentially. But he's like, I didn't have your information. And I'm like, okay. So I lost literally, it sold for $800,000. So I lost potentially $20,000 because he didn't have my phone number. That's it. One phone number is $20,000 in commission.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah, that one hurts.
It
hurts.
hurts.
But it's a great lesson, right?
Exactly.
There's no failures, only lessons.
Yeah, exactly. It's an expensive one, but it's a good one. And now I know, okay, I'm not dropping the ball in that area ever again. And if anyone lists a house, it's with me.
Absolutely. And so I do want to talk about like kind of your farming strategy and what your lead gen looks like. And the other thing that I want to mention again is if you look around in our office at other people that have big businesses, the two main factors that you're going to find is it's people that are doing a big farm or that their farm is their sphere. Because there's a couple of really big solo agents in our office, and their sphere is their main source of their business, their database. They're just big people persons, and they've got so many contacts, and they're so good at staying in touch with them. They're so personable. They're so in tune with what their database, what their tribe is into, that's where all their business comes from. And it's not just all referrals that come out of nowhere. These guys are proactively looking and staying in touch with them. We had a great talk with the coaches yesterday. And again, I shared on the morning call that we'll be posting that video. And Steph Suave, who's our commercial coach on here, was talking about how her sphere and her story, how she's going about it is mostly through social media, but it's also getting involved in her community and just being very authentic and sharing what she's into and creating a mom's walking group around Innisfil and like, let's learn Innisfil together. And all of a sudden you're just having a great natural conversation, staying in touch with people. And then it perks up that it's a real estate conversation. And then the amount of business that she's been gathering from that, just by talking to people, right? Just staying in touch with people. So it's a people game, no matter how you look at it. The big thing that we've just learned from what Mike is saying is if you're just cold calling and it isn't necessarily like a systematic approach where you can share anything with anybody afterwards, is all that time that you spent for these people that you only get to talk to maybe once a quarter and they're not going to remember you, is nothing comes of it. But if you're hitting that, say you switch over to a farm, now you're door knocking on that door, you're calling that door, you're dropping off a flyer to that door. Next month, the newsletter goes out. Then you get back around to another phone call. Then you knock a just listed. Then you knock a just sold. And constantly you're in the area and you're getting that recognition. You're getting that brand recognition that you work that area, that you are an expert. And even if they're not connecting that you're the expert, they're like, man, Mike is in our area all the time. He calls me. He knocks on my door. I see his flyers. I see his signs. Like I know that Mike's around and doing work. It's not just, yeah, last night I got a call from a realtor, but I, told them we weren't thinking about doing anything. Right. Yeah. So it's the strategic approach. And so what does that look like for you now, Mike, just in terms of your lead generation? Because our focus again today is on lead gen, what the structure looks like and what your activities are that you're doing.
Yeah, basically and again, obviously, being in the coaching program, some of you might be new agents and it's like, okay, for me to go out and to do a big neighborhood, that's very intimidating, right? But it doesn't have to be a big neighborhood. It could be something as small as your own street. And as long as you're just being consistent with it. So for me, what I'm implementing is, okay, I have 30 homes up in Mount Albert that I know I've sold them all, right? Every time that there's a listing that goes live there, I can bring them, just listed or just sold. Right. So that's potentially 2 touches, right? When it gets listed, when it gets sold. So I go and it gets listed and say, hey, listen, this one just got listed. If you want, hopefully it's my listing. If you want more information, let me know. I can get you some more info.
Yeah.
So to give you that idea, it's the same thing with that house I had up in King's Landing there. I didn't follow up with that guy, and he forgot about me. He doesn't remember me, and he didn't have my number. And he then called the next person that he found. Right. And so this guy in Weston Ford will probably never get a sale from me again, because I don't even know how to reach out to him if I wanted to. Right. I don't even know if
you don't even know who to ask for if you called the
no idea. I don't even remember what he looks like. That's the thing, is if you lined him up with 10 guys, I wouldn't even know what he looks like. But I know what Rex looks like, which is so messed up to think about. But it's true. And that touch plan, it's so important that, and again, I get it. It can be really intimidating to go and knock on 200 doors or 400 doors a week, like what Steevie was saying, but shrink it down a little bit, grow, do 40 doors a week. Just start it. Just walk
before you run.
Yeah. Do something, right? You got to start somewhere. So even if you do one street, your own street, and just say, listen, I am the expert in this area. Nobody else will know more information than me. So if it comes to real estate, you give me a call, and just do that to 20 houses and see how that feels. See how many numbers you get eventually.
And then just kind of keep going. Jenna, you'd raised your hand a moment ago. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to reiterate, it's super motivating listening to you, Mike, being a brand new agent. I just got my business cards today. Nice. I ordered some neighborhood postcards that are like a quick little introduction of myself. So while you were chatting, I was just pulling up like a CMA of specifically my neighborhood, like Allendale. So I just pulled up a CMA. So what you're suggesting is just start along my streets, bring a CMA with me so that I know my stats, and just introduce myself.
Yeah, literally just go out there. And again, you're a professional, right? You don't.
Well, I'm going to fake it till I make it, Mike.
That's it. You don't question when you go to see your doctor, you don't question your doctor, right? So when you go there, they know what they're talking about. So you got to, even if you don't know what you're talking about, you got to BS your way through it, right? So yeah, you just go and mark your territory. Literally say to a homeowner, there's nothing more reassuring to somebody than confidence. So if you say to a homeowner, listen, I am the real estate expert. Don't talk to me. I am the real estate expert. If it comes to selling on this street, I know the information. And just, if you tell them that, it's like, holy shit. Okay, I get it. Yeah, you're the guy. I'm going to talk to you. And it's like, you're almost showing the dominance. Like, this is my spot. I'm the expert. Nobody's going to mess with me. And it shows the confidence. And I believe it or not, I'm sure you'll get some results out of that.
I'm going to start with my neighbor across the street. They got a competitor sign on their front lawn.
Yeah, there you
I'm
go.
just joking.
I love it. All right, I want to jump over to just pre-qualifying questions because we want to make sure that we talked about
Is there
that
another
today.
question in the chat box there? I thought I saw someone coming in.
So it looks like we might have missed one here on Mike. I know I've asked you this before. This is Mojan before,
Yep.
but how many contacts on average a year have you gotten from cold calling and contacts that have converted into closed contracts?
That's a good
Give a
question.
rough-
I would have to look up
Yeah.
that stat because I do have that. I believe last year it was like 7 people that converted, which doesn't sound like a lot, but if you really think about it, that's 7 deals, right?
Yeah.
So you do the commission on that, it works out to be a fair amount of people. I would have to double check that, but I'm pretty confident last year was 7. The year before that was more. I know that. And then carrying on to this year, there really hasn't been much because 2020, like moving into what would be kind of closing this year, it hasn't been very much because again, obviously I was going through the transition.
Which is also why we're pivoting the strategy a little bit. And I noticed that from a lot of people that were big cold callers last year, the disconnect that we started to feel once COVID happened, like how hard it was to convert a cold lead over the phone.
It's much harder. Yeah.
Yeah,
Much harder to convert a cold lead for sure.
And then Tim had a great point there. Just a reminder to be wearing running shoes when you're doing your door knocking. I remember making that mistake before. It's never pleasant.
Yeah,
Be comfortable while you're out there.
The first time I went out, I wore my dress shoes, and the amount of blisters that I had on my feet.
Yeah,
So
that's a
bad.
great point. Thank you for sharing. All right, so I want to pull up just a nice little pre-qualifying script and document that you can use. So there's a couple of them in your resources folder. There's one under the Mike Ferry section. And because we've been doing such a focus on ninja selling, I wanted to use theirs as a great example for your, let's say we're going on a pre-listing appointment. So this is somebody that you're qualifying prior to actually going on the appointment. And some of this you can even use and convert to at the door for if you're doing your door knocking. And so information like getting name, property address, mailing address, the owners and decision makers, of course, our contact information, asking them why they're selling, when do they need to move, and they can get into some of that house description stuff. And so the important thing on why we're pre-qualifying, and it's funny, Mike and I talked a little bit about this with a company that was offering leads. You pay them X amount a month, they get you leads and appointments. And you want to know the quality of that lead before you go to the appointment and spend your time. You're going to spend time researching and preparing for the appointment. You're going to spend time on the appointment. And if it's a lead that isn't going anywhere, doesn't have any purpose, no real motivation to move, or they're just unable to move, you're gonna be wasting a lot of time on something. So we want to make sure that we're pre-qualifying every lead that we get. And so the great thing about these initial questions, really questions 1 through 8. Let's go on your home before you. 1 through 9, I would say, are all what we call foundational questions. The lead, the client, whoever you're talking to already knows all these answers. You're getting them used to answering your questions, getting them used to talking and sharing. It's perfect way to open it up. So I'd say that even as you learn your consultations, when you're sitting down with either buyers or sellers, it is knowing which questions to ask, and sometimes it's knowing what order to ask the questions in. So which way naturally flows your conversation, which way gets the person a little bit more engaged. And so starting with these foundational questions first is always important. Getting them talking about their home. Then our next questions here, like, have you done any updating to the home since you bought it? If you were to stay in the home for another 5 years, is there anything you would do? On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate its condition?
Dylan, where do you find this document?
So this is in our resources folder under working with sellers. So Mike, I actually don't know if you have, as an advanced agent, I don't know if you have access to the resource folder, but everybody else on the call, you do? Okay, good.
No, I do. Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
I was just someone asked that question.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so in the resources folder, in your coaching folder, under working with sellers, there's going to be the pre-listing interview is the name of the document. So if you just go under that folder and search pre-listing interview, you'll find this document. And so our next question is there, as we're asking about the house, this is for you to kind of know what you're walking into. You want to have an idea of what the house is before you get there. So you've kind of got a range when you're doing your little bit of homework beforehand so you know how much the house potentially might be worth based on the condition that it may be in. Question number 13 can be a tricky one, depending on the rapport that you're in. Asking them a little bit more financial information. Do you own your property free and clear, or do you have a loan? Have you had a recent appraisal? Have you recently refinanced? So just wondering how much they owe on the property is important, because again, you want to know if they're capable to make that move that they're looking for. So it's important, but I would say just make sure that you're in a decent amount of rapport sometimes before you ask that one. Ask them, what are the 3 things they're looking for in a realtor? Here you're going to get great answers in terms of how you can serve them. So just listen. Once you ask these questions, just make sure you're listening and taking a note. Asking them if they're working with if they're planning on interviewing any other agents. You definitely, I wouldn't get the name, company, or anything like that. I wouldn't gather that information. If they offer to share it, it's great. But I would just find out if they are interviewing other agents. This is a fun one to ask right away. Have you considered going for sale by owner?
Do you ask that one, Dylan?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Really?
Actually, sorry, I'm going to be honest. I'd say there was a time where I did. I believe in why you could, but I usually skip over it. The reason why you can and maybe should ask it is, one, they've all considered it. So you're addressing it right up front anyways, right? And when I mean they've all considered it, they all know that it's an option. You're going to find people right away that are like, no, like I want to hire a professional. Then you might find some people that are like, humming and hawing, like maybe I do it myself. The good reason to ask this question is, one, you're showing them that you're not shying away from the situation that's out there. You're kind of, hey, let's bring everything to the table. And 2, you'll find out who's at the other end that you're talking with. Like, are they somebody that down the road is going to have a little bit harder time seeing the value in what you provide because they've been considering that they could do it themselves. What do you think about that, Mike?
I'm always big. So I try to really feel out the client. So I mean, most of you might have seen this movie, but The Wolf of Wall Street, for example, it's a really bad example, but the guy, Leo says, sell me this pen. And the guy says, okay, write down on a piece of paper. I don't have a pen. Supply and demand, right? That's the whole idea. I hate that idea of selling because to me, that means nothing. My idea of selling is, okay, Dylan, tell me why it is you're looking to sell your house, because you might be retiring, right? And I'm trying to sell you this mega mansion because I think you have money and I want you to upgrade so I can max out on my commission. So I'm trying to sell you this massive house. And you're like, Mike, you just don't get it, dude. I'm retiring. Like I need to downsize, right? But because I didn't ask you that question, I don't know.
Yeah.
And so my approach is very much like, okay, get as much information or intel, I call it, on the client and their situation, and then present them with the option, right? So if I could ask you all these great questions and you keep sharing and sharing and sharing and sharing, I now know, okay, Dylan, so in my experience, guys that are retired, have no kids or this and that, looking to do this, have boatloads of money, you're going to want this community in this house. And then you're like, yeah, you get it. And then you end up buying it and you feel as if I'm a trusted real estate agent or I'm a trusted source to you, right? So I don't actually ever really ask about number 16. Have you considered, going for sale by owner? Because I'm trying to show the value of working with a realtor. I'm not like, I'm not trying to show that I don't have value and that you could sell it on your own, because I know you can't, right? So I'm just going to show you what it is that we're going to do to make your real estate related goals work out for you the way that you want to.
Yeah, I like both. I think the important thing is the foundation of gathering the information to find out our pleasure and pain points. Like, what's our why, right?
Yeah.
So going back up to one of the earlier questions is like question 5 right away. Why are you selling? When do you need to move, right? Describe your house for me. Describe your perfect home. Like, what does it look like? Why would you move? Like I dive deeper up here about the why you're selling.
Yeah, me too.
Going 5 levels deep there is my main goal.
Yeah.
And then here, like I said, it's up to you on if you want to ask the question on, have you thought about it? I believe in both schools of thought in terms of like addressing like the elephant in the room kind of thing. But at the same point, if you are already going deep and you're providing that value, and really I'd save this one more if you've got a sense that this is something that they're thinking about.
I agree.
If I've got a sense that they might go this way, then I want to address it right away.
And you want to see why they want to go that way, right?
Exactly.
And pull that out of them. And then if they say, well, I want to go this way because I'm trying to save commission. Okay, I understand that. And now you can approach it of they want to save commission. So show them how valuable you are and that you're actually going to make them more dollars and they're going to net more money if they work with you because they're now it's a saving issue, right?
Exactly.
Another one, sorry, just to go up to the top where it says, why are you selling? A great follow-up question to ask them as to why are you selling is, why is that important to you? So if I asked you, Dylan, why are you selling? You're like, oh, this house is too big for me. I want to move. I want to downsize. Okay. Why is that important to you? Why is it you want to do that right now? Why is that important? And you tell me, well, the stairs are killing me. Okay, great. So now I know you don't want a 2-story home. Now I know you want a bungalow, right?
And as a little coaching moment, I would even switch it. I would get rid of the whys and say what's important, kind of where you started with that.
Yes.
What's important about that to you?
Yeah.
It's just a little language thing in our mind. Sometimes the whys are like, oh, I need to justify my stance. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Defense mode. When I say what, it makes us think specifically about, hey, what is the reason that I want to do this? And what's important to that about me?
Yeah.
And then just talking about, and you'll start to know, like, as you get good at this, are they gravitating towards pleasure or moving away from pain? Like, what is it? Is it that the house is too small and I'm just stepping on everything? Or is it like, no, I'm really excited about getting a bigger house? Like, which way are we targeting there? And then that way, as you consult and talk with them, you can move towards what they're looking for.
Yeah, you're getting their criteria, right? And you're just narrowing it down, and you're getting to the point where it's like, okay, you're going to buy one of these 5 houses. So let's go see them all.
Yeah. And so the next one's real quick, because I know we're just a little bit over our time here. So is there anything else that I should know about your home? Great question to ask. And some of this stuff, to be honest, I like moving through the home with them as I ask these questions. So if I've got general information already, I don't need to worry about this one too much. Do you have any questions for me? Always a great question to ask, especially closer to the end. And then what's most important here is talking about what's next. When are we booking that appointment? I'm free, available. Is Tuesday at noon or 5 p.m. better for you? Always give the options, pick the day, set your appointment, and then make sure that you do a follow-up with everything that you guys talked about on your phone call. Say, hey, Mike, I'm really looking forward to meeting with you on Tuesday at 5 p.m. I really enjoyed our talk today. I know that you're interested in moving to Newmarket and you want to get a little bit more space for the family. You're looking for something with a big backyard. I'm looking forward to talking with you all about that and how I can help and what's going on in the market and how I can guide you through this process. See you Tuesday at 5. Whatever that follow-up email may look like. But the important thing is just moving through these questions to start getting that information and start getting rapport. And
does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, does anybody have any questions
about that? Or we kind of call it a day?
Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, Michelle, like we said before, that file is available in the resources for you guys, so you can start working through and practicing on those questions. And the important thing is, again, just with your lead generation, whatever method you decide to do, it's just about getting enough of those contacts, right? Now, we said the difference between certain types was we know our conversion ratio. If you're going cold, just straight cold calling with no other follow-up, we know that our conversion is going to be much lower. So we really got to up the contacts. If you're sticking with your sphere and your circle prospecting around just listed and just sold sometimes, particularly just listeds, because we know once a sign goes up, everybody on the street starts thinking about it. Those areas you're going to have better conversion. Obviously, with people that know, like, and trust you, highest level of conversion that you're going to get on that lead gen. All right, guys, have a great day. Tomorrow morning is Steevie for your Motivational Fridays. And as always, if you need anything, you can reach out to me, Steevie, or Jen, and we'll be happy to talk. And soon we'll let you know when the coaching hotline is up, and Mike and Steph will be there. Yeah.
Hey guys,
awesome,
that was it's Jane here.
It's
tremendous amount of information. That was really, really good. Thanks a lot.
Oh, awesome. Glad that you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Thank you everybody for joining us, and thank you to Mike for joining us today to participate and introduction into the coaching program. We're very honored and lucky to have him.
Guys.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.